So today is June 25th, 2022. This is Kelly Zakovic with the City of Savannah Municipal Archives. I am interviewing, what's your name?
David.
David, for the Proud Savannah History Project. We are conducting this interview at the First City Pride Center during the Stonewall Anniversary Block Party. So thanks for joining me.
No problem.
Great. So we're going to start with just a few background questions.
Yeah.
So what is your full name?
David Hardy, Hardy.
Perfect. And what are your pronouns and how do you self-identify?
He, him, cisgendered, identify as gay male.
Perfect. And where were you born?
Lakenheath, England, 1986.
Oh my goodness. So how did you make it to Georgia or to Savannah?
Dad was a military. He was military, so moved all around and retired in Savannah, which means I retired in Savannah in high school. So.
All right. So how long were you in Savannah, and then when did you move?
Oh Jesus. So came to Hinesville, Georgia, between the years of 2000, yeah, September 11th, that's right. 2001, so summer of 2001, I went to Pine Forest High School in North Carolina and then came to Hinesville, Georgia, summer of 2001. And so that's when I was officially in Georgia, but then sophomore year moved to Richmond Hill, but still went to Liberty County High School, and then just kind of been here, and then went to Georgia Southern, graduated in 2009, and then 2012 I went to Atlanta, and then because of the pandemic I'm currently here. So I'm looking to go back to Atlanta. So Savannah's always kind of been in the area.
Okay, cool. Would you like to share your coming out story with us?
Oh, Jesus, that's long. Basically, I came out 3 times. So first time I came out, I got caught. So back in the day, back in the early 2000s, I was in 2005, 2006, sometime around there. I was notorious for losing my phone. Notorious. And my parents got to the point where they didn't buy me the nice phone anymore. They literally bought me the cheapest that they could get because I would always have to file a police report and get the phone. So I was notorious for losing my phone. I lost my phone, and at that time I was already kind of out and open to some kids in college, and I asked to borrow my friend's phone, who had the top of the line, like the newest phone, and this phone could like literally hear you on the other side of the room, because you got to remember at that time phones aren't the way that they are now in the year 2022. And every weekend that I came home, so I was going to call my parents and tell I was coming home, and I talked to my friend, asked her to borrow a phone. I called my dad, my dad gets on the phone, and then in between the conversation of talking to my dad, my friend goes, "So does your dad know?" I said, "I think he knows, but he doesn't say anything." So I get back on the phone, and then my dad goes, because it was such a good phone, and I'm so used to not having a good phone that like literally you could put it away from your face like this and you can't hear a word. So that ended up happening. He's like, "When you get home, we need to talk." So I get home, and it's just me and my dad, and my parents are still together even to this day. And it's just so awkward, like it was just quiet and all this other stuff. And so out of the blue he goes, "So have you made up your mind?" And I was like, "No." So I get upset, I go to my room, I step on my favorite CD by this gay artist at the time, and I call my friend and I'm like, "Hey, I think maybe you need to come and get me because I'm not sure what's going down." And then what happens next? Oh, then my mom literally comes in, and then we have this big conversation, and I don't tell her I'm gay, but I tell her I think I'm into guys. And then she goes, "I don't believe you." And I was just like, "What?" I'm sitting up in the corner crying in the fetal position. "What do you mean you don't believe me?" So anyways, next day it doesn't happen. So I graduate college. We don't really talk about it in between that time. I graduate college. I moved back in with my parents for a little bit, trying to move to Atlanta. And I gotten so comfortable with at least being me that I started leaving, not necessarily porn out, but like the Advocate magazines, like the Advocate and stuff that just referred to it. And so one day there's this magazine that I really like reading, which is called DNA. It's an Australian magazine. It has like guys in swimsuit on it, but it still has some sort of like cultural sort of stuff that it talks about, but it's all from Australia. So once again, this is before phones were kind of really big. So when you go to the restroom, I want to take a magazine and, read it and da-da-da. This, once again, because it's before phones. So right next to the toilet, there is a cabinet. There's a cabinet, and there's a sink with the cabinet. And in this cabinet, there is like a whole bunch of stuff. There's like other magazines, toilet paper, tools. And I don't want to have to bring this magazine going back and forth between my room and the toilet, the bathroom. So I then take everything out of the cabinet. I then put this magazine all the way on the bottom of the stack. I put the magazines on top of it, and then I put the toilet paper in front of the magazines, and then I put the tools in front of the toilet paper. I swear to God, not even 10 to 15 minutes later, the youngest child comes in, and I can hear her talk to the middle child, and she goes, "What is this?" And the middle child reads what's on the magazine, because all it refers to gay men, and she's like, "Oh!" She's like, "Give me that." So then she comes and runs into my room, and she looks, and she's like, "Is this yours?" I was like, "Yes." She's like, Are you? I was like, "Can you just ask me? Just ask me." She's like, Are you gay?" I was like, "Yes." She's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Well, Mom told me not to tell you." And she gets all upset, and she goes running to my mom. She's like, "Well, why don't you tell me David was gay? You know he was all this other stuff, and he could have been married by now. You know, having so many gay friends and all this other stuff." Once again, we don't talk about it. The last true official time that I really came out is I was at Pensacola Pride, which basically is Memorial Day weekend. And if you know about Pensacola Pride, basically everybody starts drinking at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. in the morning. And so I had gotten literally drunk probably by no later than 11:30 noon. No later than that. And so I see all these guys, and they're with their partners and stuff. And one guy was talking about a story how him and his mom and his partner go shopping and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I don't want that. Later that night, call the youngest child, because she's really open and she has gay friends and all this other stuff. She's like, "Do you ever think Mom and Dad will come to our wedding?" And she's like, all crying. And the youngest child's like, "Yes, I know. We just gotta talk to them and da 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 and all this other stuff." And then my mom is very perceptive. I don't know how she's got literally eyes in the back of her head, and she knew something was wrong, so she's blowing up my phone, and she's like, "What are you talking about? Da 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 da." And basically, I officially came out at that time. She's like, "We love you. We already kind of knew. We were just kind of waiting. Well, we already knew," and all this other stuff. And I was like, "Ah." And which is funny now, because my mother is like literally trying to be a matchmaker now. Like, she's literally trying to be a matchmaker, and it's like, I remember when she said she doesn't believe me, and now she wants to go to like gay brag brunch, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, calm down, lady. You're killing me here, killing me, Smalls. But yeah, those are kind of the 3 times that I came out.
Okay. So June is Pride Month. What does Pride mean to you?
This is kind of transition for me. When I was living in Savannah, and I wasn't as out as I am now, Pride meant a lot, because coming from Savannah to Atlanta Pride felt like home, because you don't necessarily, particularly in Atlanta, definitely back in my time, early 2000, I think early 2000 or at least mid 2000, there was really only kind of one place to go within Atlanta, which was Savannah, which was Club One. So going to something that's bigger, where you see 300,000 people, is overwhelming. Now that I lived in Atlanta for 11, 12 years, it's a little bit different, because now it feels like everybody's coming here. Like, everybody's here, so it feels a little bit different. But I always tell people, like I was just telling someone now, like, this is the work. The smaller communities are the work, and I think those are very, very important. I think they're very important. So Pride means a lot to me when it's done in this sort of capacity.
Yeah. So this event today is memorializing the Stonewall Uprising, or Stonewallian Uprising, which is a major turning point for gay rights. Were there any sort of big turning points in your life journey or stories?
I won't say that I've had any sort of major, but I do think that there are certain moments within my life that were surprising, or I didn't necessarily realize that about myself, particularly with me being in the leather community. I didn't think necessarily that would be something that I would actually dive in as much as I have. So that's kind of been surprising. I think with also me about how I see myself within the community and about the things that I want to do and the things that I feel are necessary to do, especially with everything that's happening now politically. You know, I feel like it's time to work. It's time to do things and move forward. So if there's anything, it's just like those little things that may not necessarily be something big, as in like moving or car crash or graduating college or anything, but those things that kind of, where you have those sort of little epiphanies and you go, oh, okay, yeah, that's definitely a change. Yeah.
So how do you see yourself? What do you see as your role?
Well, so within the leather community, because I have a title called Mr. Atlantic Eagle, the leather community has a vast history that goes literally all the way back to World War II. Within those communities, men would come back from the war, and basically they created a leather community and a biker community. I don't want to get too much deep into it. That's a whole dissertation. But basically, they had basically on sexual freedom, being who they are, particularly the leather women. A lot of them were present in that riot, and that happened at Stonewall. And to be part of that is to have that title. Well, let me back it up, and then to actually see it evolve from where it came into the 70s and the 80s, and then Chuck Winslow, who was the creator of IML, which is International Mr. of Leather, created this, they hate using this word for it, but created this pageant within the leather community, which now, like my class had 60 men from all over the world, from Australia, Italy, Belgium, Norway, France, Colombia, Venezuela, Ohio. Like they're literally all over the world, come and compete for this title to represent all of the community for 1 year. It literally is a pageant. But to be a part of that and to be a part of that history, and then to go and place 5th in my class, that I think that's something that's really important. Sorry, what's the question? I'm remembering.
What do you see as your role?
Yeah. So being that said, what I kind of realized is there are things that I feel like I was scared to do, but because of going through that competition and being part of that history, it realized like, oh, there's still more work to do. There's still things to do. You may not necessarily have won the title, but there's still things to do, and you can still do things for people. So I feel like that my role is still to be a representation of myself and be full of myself, which would represent other people, even though it not necessarily I want to represent those other people, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so you started to talk about it. Would you like to talk a little bit more about a little bit about your involvement with the leather?
Yeah. So one of the big reasons how I got into it is because at the time I had no money. I literally had no money. I think 1 week I had like $20 to last me a week and a half, and almost all of the clubs had a cover charge, like a $5-10 cover charge, and I couldn't afford that. The Eagle was one of the only places that did not have a cover charge, and so I went there, and I love this is gonna sound bad, but I love the masculinity part of it. I love the smell part of it, and then I just kind of, when you're searching online, particularly when you're more on the closeted side, most of your outlet tends to be adult movies or porn or something like that. So you're seeing all this, and it's kind of exciting to see that. So you're going to the Eagle, you're seeing what you're seeing in these movies, and it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, hot, or whatever you want it to be. And then I just kind of dove myself into it. And then I ended up running for the title twice, ended up winning it on the second time, and just kind of ran from it. I mean, not ran from it, but ran with it. At that time, it ended up lobbying for LGBT rights on the state capitol. In my leather, I ended up working with a local gay politician by the name of Park Cannon, who was the youngest representative at that time and the first gay representative at that time. What else did I do? Oh, I went to Stonewall in my leather. I'm also the vice president of the National Leather Association as well. And I went to Houston. I went to San Antonio, Stonewall. I've been to Jacksonville, have extended. Oh, that's right. And I ended up working with Park Cannon for about 3 to 4 months and ended up doing a big community project with HIV. And this project with HIV then ended up creating what is Hopewell, which is housing for people living with AIDS, which is a benefit, or it is is part of the nonprofit organization or with the government. I'm not sure if it's nonprofit, but basically it created this whole section and budget to help people living with HIV within Atlanta, and also established a budget to provide PrEP for free. So ended up doing that. So all of this stuff and work is with leather, and so I love it, and I'll probably be a part of my life for the rest until I die.
What is involved with the pageant or your title? What's the...
Yeah, so basically the way that I can describe it, so titles are what we call, like, will represent a community. So there's a lot of titles. Some of them are bar titles where they represent a bar. Mine is kind of weird because I'm Mr. Atlanta Eagle, but it kind of represents Georgia in a way. And then, like I said, there's Ohio, there's New York, and literally anybody can create a title. But you run for the title, and depending on your title, like, some of them are maybe a little bit different. So for example, like, there's one that's called Mr. G&I, which is a nudist title. So if you don't like being nude, maybe you should not run for that title. And there's one that's like Mr. Classic Leather, which is maybe something that's a little bit more traditional sort of leather. I don't want to get into old guard, new guard, because that's a whole thing. But it's something that's more traditional on that side. But you have that, and so I ran for Mr. Atlanta Eagle. I ran for it in 2019, ended up winning it, and then you can go to a bigger competition, which is called International Mr. Leather. And within that, and I can speak on some of it, but basically it is like a pageant. You will go and pick your number to see which number that you are. You will also then, what else do you do? And so there's an interview portion, and they'll answer your interview, and then there's what is called they don't call it pecs and personality anymore, but it's like a image portion where you will they'll ask you a pop question, and then you'll respond to that. And then there's also other traditional things that happen in between these sections of the competition, which I don't think I'm able to speak on. But then they'll end up meeting that down to about a top 20. Once you get the top 20, then you go to a speech portion, and then you go to a fantasy word portion. You'll be judged on that. In a leather image portion, you'll be judged on that, and then they'll pick a winner from the top 20.
And Mr. Atlanta Eagle, what's involved with winning that?
That is involved. It's basically the same thing, but on a smaller scale. So there's usually like a grab bag portion. There's going to be an interview, and then later that night there's going to be a grab bag portion. There's going to be a fantasy wear portion, and then there's going to be an image portion. And then they're going to grade you on top of that. So I will actually go and judge that in October.
Is there an active leather community in Savannah at all?
Not that I am aware of. So I've actually know Travis that was in Club 1, and we've been trying to, I've been putting it off lately, but trying to at least start some sort of like BDSM 101 or Leather 101 or something like that. And they're here, but it just, once again, you just need to be able to create it. Oh, that's another thing I did. I created the Atlanta Leather Social. So that was fun as well. So maybe we'll do something down here where it might be a leather night or a gear night or something like that.
Okay. That's great. How many people are involved in Atlanta? Is it a large community?
I say Atlanta has one of the better leather communities in the United States. I will tell you. I've been to several places, big places, and Atlanta. No one can rival Atlanta. No one can rival it. That's all I will say on film. But no one will no one can rival it.
That's great. So you've talked a little bit about Club One. What other kind of establishments locally or up in Atlanta are really important?
So there was Milo, the Venus de Milo, that was here. I remember that. That was here for what I believe it was called Venus de Milo. People just used to call it Venus. There was that, and then that used to be where Tidal Wave or Wave, whatever the bar that has the wave on it, whatever that bar is, that used to be there. There used to be a bar called Blaine's Backdoor Bar and Grill, and that was Bull and something, and it was started by a guy that was a realtor, and it literally, you entered through the back door. I remember that, and his name was Blaine, and he just had a bar. It literally was a small little bar, had karaoke, and it was just a cool, fun time. Yeah.
So what would you say your favorite thing is about either Savannah or Atlanta LGBTQ plus communities?
If it's anything, I would say that they're, particularly lately, I'll probably have to speak a little more Atlanta about this, but particularly the leather community has been very opening and very gracious about who they let in. Leather has a lot of staunch history and a lot of people who I will, like, once again, I don't want to get into old guard, new guard, but still see leather in a very, and I don't want to call it traditional because it's not traditional, but in a very strict way of what leather actually means. Atlanta has seemed to always be open, no matter what your gender, sexuality, and in some cases, I even say sex or gender, letting women in, because a lot of places, in some Eagles, they won't even allow women in. Not now, because that would never happen, but maybe about, I don't want to speak ill, no, that was before me, but I would say, let's just say like in the 80s and the 90s, women aren't coming in. But yeah, I think for me, that's something that's always been really, really important.
Are there any challenges you think that face the community?
Particularly within Savannah, I think the biggest challenge is just providing more places to go and things to do. There doesn't seem to be a lot of options right now of where you can go. Like in Atlanta, it's a little bit different because Atlanta's such a gay-friendly city. You can, depending on where you go, you can hit on someone and they will leave you alone. Savannah's a little bit different. So I feel like if there were more options, or at least gay-friendly options, I think it would be a little bit different and a little bit opening, and you would probably have a more of a community that would come here. I feel like that, because like even now, even though I've been back since the pandemic, it's like where to go.
That makes sense. Are there any community members or allies that you'd like to tell us about or lift up or nominate to talk to us?
I don't have anyone here in Savannah. I think if there's anyone in Atlanta, well, I'll have to probably speak onto a man by the name of Sir Allen. So he was a very big influential community person within the leather community. When I tell you that this man looked like he had stepped out of Tom of Finland, literally, this man looked like he had come out of Tom of Finland. He's probably 6'1", broad shoulders, 9-10% body fat, hairy chest, big bald, big booming voice. Like his voice was ha 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 ha. Like he literally looked like he came out of Tom of Finland, and he passed away I think about 6 years ago now. And it really hit Atlanta hard to the point where the community did not feel like where to go. And there were a lot of people. His boy stepped up and really took it by the horns and really grew a lot. And there was other people who had stepped up, and this is going to sound vain, but including myself, who said like, no, 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 no. Like, this person was influential, but he is influential and he's very important to us, but that doesn't mean that we need to stop doing what we're doing and moving forward for that. Like, he's definitely not forgotten. He's definitely not forgotten. I actually took something of his. I asked Nitro, his boy, if I could take something of his on stage when I went to IML. And when I did my speech, I had his armband in my hand when I did my speech. And that's kind of it. But yeah, really influential. So if anybody's still interested in that in Atlanta, I mean, I can hook you up with Nitro, and he'll have stories about it. But yeah.
A parallel project like this up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So you spoke a little bit about your political advocacy. Would you like to talk a little bit more about how you got involved, or where you feel?
I needed a job. I needed a job, and somebody said Park Cannon was hiring, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And to be honest with you, the reason why we focused on HIV because I was scared of it at that time. I was very, very scared of it, and I knew the only way that I would be able to get over it is if I learned about it. So we ended up learning about it, got Emory and CDC involved, and ended up doing a project, did a 2-weekend project, did a presentation, and then we actually got the community involved to actually figure out what these sort of problems were, and actually ended up getting an award at that time from the Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, and ended up getting an award from him for Ambassador of Georgia, which is the highest civilian award that you can get from the government, the state government. So I was very happy with that.
Was it well received?
Oh yeah.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah. Well, it created a lot of projects. Created that PrEP project, and it created Hopwa, so people housing for people living with AIDS. So yeah.
That's great. All right. So we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about yourself?
Yeah, I think for me. Oh, hold on, just a second. Hey, give me 10 minutes, okay? Okay, give me, no, give me 10 minutes, I'm doing a documentary thing. Yeah, just send me your location again and I'll come. Okay, I got you. Bye. No, but I think for me, if there's anything, sorry about that.
No, it's totally fine. If
there's anything, I guess you'll leave me with my IML speech, because a lot of people really like that. So yeah. I'm not going to do it as emotive as I did it on stage, but I'll do it. So see if I can remember the words. They tell me that leather is dying, that it doesn't exist anymore, that with all our bars closing, who gives a fuck? Well, let me tell you what I see. From the Carter Johnson Library to the LMAM to all the Eagles, our places holds us for who we are in our vast history. From the Onyx to the Satyrs to the Chicago Hellfire, our clubs grounds us in who we are. From Kyle Ryder to Sir Allen to Chuck Winslow, these men are proof that our legends truly never die. Today we walk on the sidewalk which has been paved in the blood, sweat, and tears of the leather men and women who've come before us. We are who we are because of their bold actions. Yes, leather has changed, but it has always been based in the fight for who we are and those adjacent to our cause. We have always been the community to push forward and rise above adversity. And if you don't believe me, look at us today. It's been a 2-year fight to get back here, and we are evidence that there are no viruses to keep us from being who we are. So no, leather is not dead, because we choose to lace up our boots, strap on our vests, and live in our truth in a world that is not made for us. Ladies and gentlemen, and those of you beyond the binary, it is an honor and a pleasure to be standing in front of the greatest community in the world, and I thank you for your time.